Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online Guide video with me, Sherman. Today we're going to be talking about champion point distribution, where to place your points in the CP system, and I was going to do this over several guides, but I decided it would be best if we focused on just one guide to cover it all. So, after doing several different videos to do this, I wind up just doing it into one, because it's just a lot easier. So this video is a guide to champion points, champion point distribution, or allocation as I like to call it, and pretty much that's it. So the first thing you have to understand is even when you have a character at max level, no CP, that kind of thing, this is pretty much what it's going to look like. This is with running food, all that kind of stuff. This is what you're going to look like. Okay, this is before CP is even added to your character. Now, this particular build I've gone through, and I have it set up for in-game. So I'm running all divines, stamina, glyphs, everything, Hunting's Rage, and then I'm running Powerful Assault for the support side, because I do like this setup. So for this particular build, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you guys CP allocation, not just for this build, but I'm going to show it for tanks, healers, and DPS. And we're going to do the three different trees. And then I'll show you the benefits when I'm done, what it's going to look like when we have it all done on the character. So starting in the CP system, the thing you have to understand about the CP system is it's there to build your character up more. So, in Morrowind, they increased the CP cap, or they put a CP cap on your character, on how much stat bonuses you can get. Now, for each tree here, when you spend 100 points into the red tree, you will gain 20% more health. When you put 100 points into the green tree, you will gain 20% more stamina. When you put 100 points into the blue tree, you will get 20% more magicka. That's what they did with Morrowind, and they put a cap on there because our characters were getting too powerful for the game itself. The other thing that a lot of people don't realize is how the trees work. So the red tree is all about survivability. This increases your health pool, this increases your damage reduction, and your resistances. Now there is a few in here that don't pertain to those. Like, for example, the quick recovery is about, like, health, like giving you healing received, that kind of thing. And then over here we have resistance, which is a PvP thing. This increases your critical resistance. Not a lot of PvE mobs hit you with crits. So, and when they do, you never really notice them because you already have a lot of damage mitigation already. So the red tree is about that. Now the green tree is about resource management, and it's about increasing your max stamina. Because a lot of abilities you use outside, like in combat, but that are not active skills. They're just active abilities that your character has built into them, like the ability to sprint, the ability to break free, bash an enemy, dodge roll, block. Those are built into this tree to give you resource management with your stamina, because those are active abilities you use no matter what. You dodge attacks, you block attacks, you might bash an enemy. There's a lot of different things you might do, and this tree allows you to do it and save your resources. It also plays into your resource management through recovery of stamina magicka, and then your recovery through heavy attacks. So this tree is all about resource management. And you can see here, like I said, break free, sprinting, bashing, blocking, dodge rolling, and then there is two in here, befoul and sprinter, and these don't really pertain to resource management, but this one does help you, like, increase the effectiveness of your healing reduction abilities, like major defile, minor defile, things like that. And then this one helps you also bring or decrease the enemy's health, magic, and stamina recovery. More of a PvP thing than a PvE thing. Same with this over here, but this can be also used in PvE. So, moving on to the blue tree, this increases your max magicka, like I said, with 100 points, but it also is your damage tree. This tree has mostly to do with damage. There's only one thing in here that doesn't deal with damage. And that tree is, or that thing is blessed. That has to do with your healing done. So this tree is all about damage. Now this tree is mostly about magic damage. This is about stamina damage, and this is kind of in the middle. This is about your light and heavy attacks and your direct damage, and also shattering blows, which is increasing your damage done to enemies with damage shields. So lots of really neat things. Now each of these 9 trees, or 3, because this is the mage tree, this is the warrior tree, and this is the thief tree. In each of these trees, besides the constellations you put into, you can also unlock benefits or perks. And you get those at rank 10, 30, 75, and 120. That means you have to spend 10 points in here to get this. You need to spend 30 points to get this. You need to spend 75 to get this, and then 120 to get this. Now, like I said, not a lot of people utilize a lot of the perks because they're okay. A lot of the people utilize the perks more in the blue tree, like Perfect Strike, Exploiter, Butcher, Reposit, Spell Precision, maybe Vengeance, maybe Foresight, that kind of thing, Arcane Well. And then some of these other ones not a lot of people build into, because there's, like, what's the point? Like, why do I need Shadow Strike? Kill an enemy with a heavy attack and become invisible for 2.5 seconds. Fortune Seeker increases the amount of gold you can get from safe boxes. That's pretty good. The chests in the safe boxes, this is pretty good. Reduces the cost of your armor, gives you better quality chests, items and drops from chests. Some are really good, but you don't really build in to get these. You get them if you get them, kind of thing, is the way a lot of people look at them. Even though a lot of them are really good, like Bulwark for a tank is really good, Spell Absorption is really good for a Magicka person, Critical Leech is kind of good, Resilience is kind of good for a DPS. When you take critical damage, you heal for so much. Reinforced, when you block, you gain a damage shield. Some of these things are good, but not necessary, kind of factor. Now, each of these constellations, you can only put 100 points into them. Now, each of these constellations, depending on the type, will give you one of 3 max benefits. So, like, there's a 15% max benefit, a 25%, a 35%, and then there's a flat number benefit. These ones that do the percentage benefits have things called jump points. And jump points are basically like, for example, if I put 2 points in a Bastion, you'll see I get 1%. Well, if I put 2 more points in here, I go to 1.97. Now that 0.97 doesn't get rounded up or rounded down. It's 1% still. It's not until I hit this button and I go to 2.45 do I go up an actual another percent. That's a jump point. It's the points in between to get to the next increase. So if I go from 5 to 9, that's a jump point. It's the space in between that you don't want the points in. So, like, I don't want to put 8 points into here because it's not going to give me the better percentage increase. When I put 9, I get a better percentage increase. And that's what jump points are. Now, I have another term I like to use called breaking points. And breaking points is basically like this. So for a 15% one, a breaking point would be something like 23, or not 23, sorry, would be 43 points. And that's because it's going to give you a 10% increase. Now, besides breaking points, there's another thing called a cap, a close capness point is what I call it, or a cap closeness point, which is this. This is as close as you can get to cap without getting to cap. And that's going to give you a 1% difference before getting to cap. Now, the reason why we call these breaking points and closeness cap points is because each tree has this benefit. So, for example, this one has only 1 breaking point. Now, a 25% increase one has 2 breaking points. Those breaking points are 23 points and 56. And then it has 1 cap point, which is actually 80 1 points. And that's where the jump points are at their maximum, basically. So going from here to 100 points is going to give you 1%. So these things are very front loaded. So it's better to start with smaller amounts into them before you build into them. Now the 35% ones are a little different. They have 3 breaking points, and their breaking points are 10, 35, and 63. Now their cap points area is actually at 84 points, or yeah, at 84 points. So this is what they look like out the door. So you have 14% for quick, like this would be 14, like a 15% one your capping point would be 75. A 25% would be 81. And then your expert, like your 35%, sorry, would be 84. But the breaking points that you want to build to give you that better benefit, for example, is things like this. And that's because look how many points you have to put into them to get that extra. So from here to 75, think about that. I'm at 43, and we're going to 75. That is almost a 50% increase in points to get another 4%. So a lot of the times, building into the breakpoints is a lot better than building into the cap points. It just depends on the tree. Now, I just wanted to kind of cover that stuff before we get into talking about placement of points and allocation for the Dragon Bones DLC and things like that. And it's really just general knowledge. So remember the breaking points, remember the jump points, and remember those cap points, because we're going to be playing with those as we're building out this build, or building out this thing where we're building characters. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with the red tree, and we're going to go through each of the setups. We're going to go with tank, we're going to go healer, and we're going to go DPS, both magic and stamina. So the first thing we're going to start out with here is we're going to start out with the basics of where you're going to put your first 162 points. Now, once you get to 162 CP, you will have 54 points in each of the trees to spend. And that's when you've earned a total of 162. So at 162, the places you're going to want to focus is Hardy and Elemental Defender. You're going to want to put 27 into each of these. Now, the reason you're going to do this is because if you look, I have spent a total of 54 points. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're playing a tank, healer, or DPS. This is how you want to start. Now, as you progress from 162 up on a tank, you're going to want to focus on things that are going to make you tanky. So the next place you're going to want to go is Bastion, because you do use damage shields on tanks, and having a good damage shield increase really helps. So going this up to 23 is going to help you out. So don't focus on here first, then focus in the Bastion. After you focus in the Bastion, then you can focus on something like Ironclad by taking it up to 23. After you focus on Ironclad, if you want, you can take this up to 23. Or you can focus on to Expert Defender by taking it up to 16. Now, it just depends on how you want to fill out your points. The next place after you fill out either Thick Skin or the Expert Defender is focusing back here and taking these up to 43 each. Now, like you said, we're playing with breaking points. So we're building everything. This whole build is going to be built around breaking points and jump points. No cap points. So we're at our breaking points here. We're not going to add any more. Next up, we're going to go back over here, and we're going to take this up to 56. And this is going to put us at the breaking point for Ironclad. Now, we are already at a breaking point here and here. But we're going to go ahead and take this up to 56. And now we're at breaking points for all of these. Okay? Now, we still have 26 points to spend. So we can either go into here and take this up to 23 and give another breaking point, or we can take that 26 points and actually add it to things like this. This 10 points will give us another 2% increase in our reduced damage taken. We'll have 16 points left over where we could actually add, say, that to 49. We'll take this down to 49. And that's going to leave us 4 points left over where we can put it into our heavy armor focus. There's a lot of things you can do to build out your build. And it's really basically up to the player to decide on what's best. Now, I like to build to breaking points, and that's just me. So we're going to take this back down to 27. We're going to start with the healer next. And the healer's basically kind of the same thing as the tank. I'm not going to lie. With a stupid keyboard. Or stupid fingers. Sorry, my trimmers are bugging me right now, guys. So, 27. We have 186 points to spend. Or we're going to earn a total of 186 points from here on out. So this is with the first 54 on a healer. The next place you want to go is Bastion. Because you do use some damage shields as a healer. And benefiting on those is kind of good. Now, if you don't want to focus here first, you can focus into Ironclad first, taking this up to 23. And then afterwards, you can go into here, Bastion, Quick Expert Defender. It's really up to you. So we're going to just put 23 into here, saying that we're putting points in here. Next up, go back to Hardy and Elemental Defender, take them up to 43. Again, like I said. Oops. And then you still have points to spend as you progress. As you progress, so from here, I would fill this in to get this 10%. Just to get the 10%, to meet that breaking point. Now, this is a 35% increase. So you could take this higher, but you really don't need to. So focusing on here is just fine. Now, moving back over here. You can go take this up to 56 as a healer if you want. And you're still going to have 59 points as you're progressing to build with. So you can build into Bastion. You can build into Quick Recovery if you want. You know, taking this up to 43 so you get a 10%. You're also going to get Revival, where when you are resurrected by another player, you gain a damage shield. You will get Filled Physician when you resurrecting another player. Your damage taken is reduced by 15%, which stacks, by the way, with the Expert Defender, Hardy Elemental Expert, and Ironclad. Now, these things just basically help you mitigate damage, like I said. But the more points you put in here, once you get up to 100, you will get your max CP bonus to health of 20%. And this is before your Munda Stones calculated. So the way it calculates it is you have what's called a base stat setup. That's your gear stats and your attribute points you get to put into your character, your 64 attribute points. Once those are allocated, that is your base character stats. Now, your percentage increases get applied first before your Munda Stone increase gets applied. And your Munda Stone actually gets applied at a flat rate, almost. So, if you're using something to boost your health, or boost your stamina, or boost your magicka from Munda Stones, those things get applied at a flat rate and get added to whatever you have. They don't get the percentage bonus from this or from your other stuff. So that's the healer setup that I would go with. Like, once I got to this point where I had 16 points left over, you really have pretty much, you know, a lot of choices to go with here. You know, you don't have or you don't have a lot of choices. So with the 43 in here to give you, you know, extra healing received, you could put it into here to get this up to 56 to give you 20% more shields. You know, you can put 23 into here if you want, put 3 into this. It's really up to you on how you set your healer up. So let's go ahead and go over the CP setup for a DPS. I'm going to go ahead and remove all these, even though I'm going to put 27 back into those 2 middle trees. Alright, so for a DPS, like I said, 27 here. 27 here. I'm just going to make this 37, take it down. Alright, so there we go. Now, this is for DPS, so you'll start here, and then you'll want to focus on Ironclad right out the door. Then after Ironclad, you can focus back onto these, or you can raise this up to 16. I like to raise this up to 16, personally, and then focus back onto these by taking these up to 43. Now, I haven't done this in a long time, guys, because I don't have the points. So once you get these at 43, this at 16, and this at 23, then I would put into here. And I would just take this up to 56. Because once you get this at 56, you're at the breaking point, 20%, 10%, 10%, and 16. Now you have 82 points left to fill in. Now, if you want to, you can fill in Thick Skin. Thick Skin basically reduces damage over time effects. So if you are applied with burning, like shock, like concussed, because concussed, diseased, poison, you know, chilled, fire, or burning, all that kind of stuff, they do damage over time. And those are some of the damage over time effects. Now, some of the abilities that get applied to you also do damage over time. And then Resto and Lightning Staff do damage over time. So if you want to put into this, you can. And you can put this up to 56 if you want. And that's going to leave you 26 points left over. Now, a lot of people like to take these up to 66, so they get that 2% extra from it. Just 2% extra damage mitigation. But, personally, I like to give myself a little bit more what I call survivability recourse. So I will actually put in a quick recovery, and I will take it up to 23 points to give myself a 6% increase. Now, this is just a jump point. This isn't a breaking point, this is a jump point. To make this a breaking point, I'd have to put 43 into it. So I just like to give myself a little bit of healing received bonus, because 2%, you're not going to really notice. And I'm being serious. You're not going to really notice it. So I like to do that. And then because I'm wearing medium armor on this build, I'll put the rest in there. Now, Magicka Stamina DPS can be built out the same. It doesn't matter. If you're a Magicka DPS, so you're going to want to take these last 3 points and just put it into here. And that's just for now. For this update. And this is when you're at max CP. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back in here, and I'm going to show you guys the benefits here real quick. So what we're going to actually do is actually remove this, and we're going to take this down to the 27, and then, so you guys can see, as you're adding points and you're applying them, you'll see that your health is going up by a small percentage. As you saw there, I just got 18k health from this setup. Now I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to add the rest of my points. I'm going to take this up to 100. So I'm going to go ahead and do this up to 23. And I'm going to do this up to 23. Because this will put me at 100 points spent. See, I'm at 77. 23 more points is going to give me this. And that's going to put me at 100. So once I do this, this is my max stat total. I can't get any higher in my health from CP after this. So I'll go in here and I'll literally put the rest of the points. Now remember this number, 18,721. 18,721. I had to repeat it a few times. So we're going to go ahead and take these up to the places I had them earlier. Because I like to play with just breaking points instead of anything else, to be honest. $18,721. My health did not change after I put 100 points in there and I saved it. And the reason why is because that's the cap. 100 points spent across these 3 trees. And you will gain 100% health. And that's it for the red trees on the CP and how they benefit you. Now moving into the green tree, and like I was saying about how it's about resource management and stamina pool and all that, we're going to go ahead and go into here. And you're always going to want to start in the middle tree with this one. With the green tree and the red tree, start in the middle trees because this is where you're going to get the most of your benefits. So no matter what you're playing, magic, stamina, DPS, you're going to start with something like this. At 52 or 54 CP, sorry. And that's going to give you 7% increase in magic return or stamina return from your fully charged heavy attacks. And this is going to give you a 7% increase in your stamina recovery. And if you have 27 in Arcanist, if you're a magic at DPS, you will get a 7% increase in magic recovery. Now, tanks, healers, DPS, they'll all start this way at 54 CP. Next up, for, like, say, a magic at DPS, you might want to increase this up to 43, and then when you have the points, upgrade this to 43. Now this is just for stamina or magic at DPS, okay? The next update, or as you progress, take this up to 75. So that way you get this benefit. Now you have 122 points to spend. Now you can either choose to take this up to 75 to give you a 14% increase, or you can start putting into this other stuff. And I like to fill out tumbling next, because I do a lot of dodge rolling as a magic DPS, and I block a lot. So I might want to do this. The other thing is that I know I get stunned and knocked off balance, so putting into this might help. Having this up to 23 as well. Now I still have 53 points to spend, but I'm not going to spend them in here. I'm going to continue building out these other trees. Now I'm going to go ahead and take this up to 56, because I do like to tumble. Like I said, I dodge roll a lot, so I want to save that magicka. Now I have 20 points left. Now I have a lot of options and where I can put it. I can put the 20 points in here, you know, I can put it into here. I can put it into here. I can put it into here, taking me up to 81, or you know, like 95 or whatever, but really it's not going to do me any good. So I can put it into the Warlord. I can put 20 into here. Not very good. But I could put into here, and I can put it up to 20, take it down 1 point, or even, you know, a few points, whatever, till I have like a 10%, which is 16 points. And I can take these last remaining 4 points, or 2 points, sorry, and put 2 into here, and take another 2 and put it into here. There, you have a lot of options in what you can do. I just prefer doing this, because this is going to give me the greater benefit in the long run. So that's for magic at DPS. Stamina DPS is no different. It's just doing this. This is stamina DPS. 75, 43, 56, 23, 23, 20, done. Now what about a healer? Healer's a little bit different. And that's because of the way they work. So you're going to leave these points and these points. The one you're going to bring down is this. You're going to bring this down to 23. And you're going to bring this up to 75. Now you have 1 point left. There's your healer. Now the reason you're going to bring this up to 75 is because with a healer, you do a lot of, you're going to be doing a lot of heavy attacks on your resto staff. So getting that greater magic return is going to be really good. You also want to build into magic recovery. So you're going to want this at 75 as well. So you get good magic recovery. And that's it for a healer. A tank is even easier. So a tank is going to be something like this. You're going to start with this at, you know, 43. And you're going to have some points left over. Now, a tank is a little bit different, guys, because you are going to want to start with tenacity out the door. Or, no, sorry, you're not going to want to start with this. The place you're going to want to start is Shadow Ward. And you're going to want to take this up to, I think it's, is it 51? So you're going to want to take your first 54 points and put it in that in there. Take the next 3 and put it in here. Don't worry that it doesn't do the benefit, because that's at 54 points in here. Next, you're going to want to take this up to 23 if you want, or you can even go higher and take it up to 43 as you progress. And that's where you're going to want to do. You're going to want to leave this at 51. Now, eventually you want to take this up to 56, so it's at its breaking point. This is at a breaking point. Now, I would focus on this to take this up to 75, because you are going to need this kind of return on your character. This you can take up from here. You can take it up to 81 if you want, or you can even take it up to 100 as a tank. But I would really suggest not even doing that, because even a 56 20% increase is going to be fine, because a 4% isn't going to make a big deal if you're wearing all sturdy gear anyways. An extra 4% isn't going to make that much of a big deal. So what I like to do is I like to focus onto my magic recovery, and I only put into this to get a 10% increase personally, and then I like to focus on tumbling, and then I like to move into my break free, because as a tank I do break free a lot, and this leaves me 20 points, which I'll just dump into here. And this is how I like to keep my tank setups for the most part, depending on the type of tank I'm using. But most tanks can get away with this and be fine, because you do use a lot of heavy attacks for resource return as a tank, because heavy armor gives you resource return, and having that greater resource return just helps out. The reason we build into magic recovery is because most tank builds are using a damage shield that's magicka based. Like if you're playing a DK or you're playing a Templar, you're going to use damage shields that are magicka based, so you want to build into this. If you're a stamina tank that uses stamina shields, even though you have a block cost and everything, you're blocking a lot, you can still use Mooncalf to give you a greater stamina recovery, because the higher your stamina recovery is, the more return you get when you do those heavy attacks. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and set this now to what I would run on a stamina DPS build. And just to show you guys, and we're going to see what it looks like after this. So after I do this, you'll notice my stamina recovery went up a little bit. My stamina pool went way up, because it was at like 30-something thousand, 31,000, 33,000 something, and it went up almost 5K from it. But the reason it went up so much is because I not only was I already at a 12% increase, but it takes that 12% and adds it to that 20%, making it a 32% increase in my stamina. Now, where was I getting a 12% increase from? Well, my race itself is Wood Elf. I get a 6% increase in stamina. Because I'm wearing 5-1-1 setup, 5 heavy, 1 light, 1 medium, I get another 6%. So that's a 12% increase to my stamina pool already. Then you add in the 20% I got from here, and that takes it up to a 32% increase in my max stamina. Because it takes all the percentages and adds them together, and then takes your base of whatever your attributes are at, and whatever your gear gives you in stats, and it basically gives you that percentage multiplier to your pool. So 32% increase from what I was at, which was 20, I think it's a 26K or something like that is where my base is. So this is like almost 50% of my stats I'm getting back in this. So it's like a massive boost. Now, if I was a Red Guard, I'd actually get a 36% increase in my stamina. If I was an Imperial, I'd get a 36% increase in my stamina. If I was an Orc, I would get a 30, whatever it is, 32%. And then it would go on from there. So just remember that when you do these benefits, this is how this works. This is how the CP system adds to your character. Alright, so moving into the blue tree. Now the blue tree is going to be the complicated one, guys, because this is where your damage is played in. Now each one of these trees deals with a different section of magic, or damage. This deals with magic damage, this deals with stamina damage, and this deals with kind of everything in the middle from light and heavy attacks and direct damage. So For a Magicka DPS, the places you're going to want to start is right here. And you're going to want to do it just like this. Oops. Now, why are we going to do it like this at 54 points? Well, 54 points in here like this is going to give you 7% increase to Flame, Frost, Shock, and Magic damage. And depending on what race you are, that's going to give you another increase. So if you're not a Sork, if you're, Sork, and you're a Dark Elf, you're going to get a 6% increase to your shock damage. So you're actually going to go to a 13% shock damage with it. Now, if you're a High Elf, you're going to get a 5% for being a Sork and 4% for being an Elf, a High Elf, in shock damage. So you're going to get you're going to get a 9% increase. That's going to take you to 16% shock damage. So that's why you're going to want to do these kind of things. You're going to want to know the benefits that the class gives you and how it's going to affect you in this kind of situation. Now, over on the stamina side, we're just going to do the same thing that we did just now over there, but we're going to do it this way. So for stamina DPS, you're going to want to do the same setup. Just like this. Start like this. Because, as you can see, we have 54 points. You're getting Mighty, which increases physical, poison, disease damage at 7%. Then you have Precise Strikes. This increases your critical damage and critical healing done with stamina abilities. This increases your penetration value of your character. So having that 4 points in there will help you increase your damage, but not totally yet. Okay? Going over here and looking at this, it's the same setup. You're getting that 27 to Flame, Frost, Shock, and Magic damage, but you're also getting 10% increase to your critical damage and healing done. And then 4 into spell penetration. Now, we're going to start with the Magicka DPS and just build from here. So the next thing you're going to want to do with the Magicka DPS after you built in these 54 points is start over here with Thaumaturge and build this out with another 23. So you can get a 10% increase in your damage with damage over time effects. Now, this is a good setup right here so far. Now, moving on, the next one you're going to want to focus on is taking this up to 43 and then Elfborn up to 56. Now, why did we not focus on the other one yet? The Thaumaturge way over there. Well, the reason we didn't focus on Thaumaturge is because this is going to give you the greater damage for now. As you progress, though, you will want to take this up. Now, you have an option here. You can either put this up to 51, giving you a 19% increase in your damage done with damage over time, or you can take this up to a 56, and this will give you a 20% increase. Now, these are the options, guys, that you can do. You can go 56 here, 56, 43, and still have that 4 points sitting here. Now, once you're at this point, this is where you're going to be going into trials. Because now you've spent 103 points here and 56 over here. This is almost 200 points spent. This is where you're trial ready in the blue tree. From here on, you might want to start putting some points in here and take this up to 22. Just 22. Then you'll have 63 points that you can spend elsewhere. So you can either take this up to 66 and this up to 66, which leaves you 43 points, which you can put 40 into here, which will give you a 16% increase, and another 3 isn't going to do you any good. These 3 points, you could put 2 into here or 3 into here and give you a 2% increase in your light and heavy attacks, which is fine. This is how you would set up a Magicka DPS. And this is just to give you the greater benefits. There's a lot of options, though, guys, because you have the freedom to choose where you want those points. Now, me, as a player, I like to do something along the lines of this for my Magicka DPS. Oops, went one too many. I like to do something along the lines of this, and I didn't mean to put that there. I meant to put this here. So I can get a 20% increase in my light and heavy attacks from my destruction staves, 19% increase in my direct damage, and then a 19% increase in my damage over time. So if I'm using a lightning staff, I'm going to get 19% increase in the light and heavy attacks, or in the heavy attacks, just like I would from light attacks. And if I'm playing with a fire mage, I'm going to get a 19% increase in my damage over time abilities, like burning, other things like that. But also I'm going to get a 19% in my light and heavy attacks. So I'm still retaining that same 19%. Over here, I'm going to get a 50, with 56 points, I'm going to increase my spell critical by 20%. Now you got to understand, a lot of these things stack. So your light and heavy attacks will stack with Master at Arms if it's Fire Staff. Okay, that's your light and heavy attacks. Now, if it's a Resto Staff or a Lightning Staff, your light attacks will stack with Master at Arms, and your heavy attacks will stack with Thaumaturge. And they will all stack with this. So this is why a lot of people play High Elves and Dark Elves as magic at DPS, and they don't play Argonians and Bretons as magic at DPS. So that is pretty much the magic at DPS setup that I go with, and you can choose, like I said, what you want. I just showed you guys some basics there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the healer, and we're going to go ahead and do the healer now. So and this is starting healer. Well, a starting healer, you don't want to put points in here. You want to put them in here. You want to have 27 into the healing received. So this is starting healer setup. And then from here, you're going to want to fill this out, usually to 43. And then Elfborn, you're going to want to get it up to 56. Now, why do you want to do this first? Because this is going to give you a 10% increase in your healing done. This is going to give you a 20% increase in your critical healing done. So this is going to help you overall. Once you have this, I would suggest taking this up to 43. Now, why do we want to put 43 points into here? You do light and heavy attacks with a Resto Staff. Getting a benefit of extra damage can help the group. But you're also going to be using a lightning staff, so you can get that extra shock damage as well. So from here, you're going to go back to here, and you're going to take this up to 75. Now we're at the top, we're at the cap point for this, the breaking point, the top breaking point for this. We're at the top breaking point for this. We still have 62 points to spend. Now a lot of people will say put 100, and call it good with the remaining points into like Elemental Expert and like a few into here. But that's their opinion. Myself, I personally like to put into Staff Expert. And usually I like to take this up to about 16, this up to 23, and this up to 23. And I'm done. I can't spend any more points. Now, why would I want to do this? Because this is overall going to give me, as a healer, a really good setup. Because, see, I'm going to get the highest I can before reaching the total cap of 100 points. I'm going to get 14% healing done. On top of that, I'm going to get 20% increased critical healing done, which is really good. Now, like I said, you have your own choices in how you want to place your points in here. I have 43 in Elemental Expert. This increases my magic damage, which is what Resto Staves do, by 10%. And it also increases my shock damage because I will be running most likely a lightning staff on the main bar so I can apply weakness to elements. So that's going to give me a 10% increase in shock damage. Now, if I'm playing a high elf, I'm going to get 4% increase in shock damage. That's going to be a 14%. And depending on what class I'm playing, as a healer, I'm going to get different benefits. So if I'm playing a Warden, I'm going to get 6% increase in magic damage. So I'm not only going to get 14% shock, I'm going to get 16% magic damage, which is going to increase my Resto staff damage. So that's kind of the benefit here. And then this right here stacks with Staff Expert and Master at Arms and Thaumaturge. So what I did here is, you notice I did 10%, 10%, 10%. That way I can get a 20% increase in my light attacks, or 30 plus increase in my light attacks, and a 30 plus increase in my heavy attacks, because I'm using a lightning and Resto Staff. Both of those do channeled attacks, and because of that, they do damage over time on their heavy attacks. So that's why I'm going to do something like this on my healer. Now, moving on to a tank, which is, depending on the type of tank you're playing, like a DK tank, we'll start with something like this. So they can get this benefit, the Elfborn from their dragon, green dragon blood. Myself personally, I don't like to put in here. I do like to start here with 27. And then I like to start with 23 in here. And then 4 points into here. This is how I like to start my tank. Because I do build my tanks to have some survivability or capability to play in the open world. From this point here, though, I will build Blessed out to 43 points only. Now, why am I going to only build out 43 points? Because I only need the 10% increase. I don't need 75% or 75 points to give me 14%. Because I am a tank, therefore I still want to be kind of, you know, tank capable. So I want to be more than just tank capable and being a healer support person. So I will show you the other setup for more supportive tank, but we're going to go with this tank first. So the next place I'll go is here, and I'll go to 43. Then I'll focus on this to 23, because I've already got my two at their breaking points. This is at a breaking point now. Next place I'll focus is here, and I'll take this up to 35. And the reason I'll take this up to 35 is because I get that 20% increase in my light and heavy attacks, and I also unlock Reposit. Now from here, you have a lot of choices. You can build this out, like I said, to 75, and you still have points left over where you can build this up to 56 if you want, and you can build your piercing up to, like, you know, a lot if you want, you know, to be in a tank. You can get extra damage, that kind of thing. Or you can leave this at 4, and you can focus on a Master at Arms at 23. So you get that 10%, you get 20%, you know, and then you can put the rest in here. You have, like I said, a lot of options, guys. Now, I'm going to show you how I set my tanks up so you guys can see for yourselves. So my personal favorite setup for a tank is actually doing this. And the reason I like doing this setup is because this will give me 10% healing done. This is, so if I'm using Vigor, Repentance, Green Dragon's Blood even, I still get the extra healing from it, right? I still get to do the healing from it. I don't heal as much if I build into this, but I can still do this. I get good Mighty, so my physical damage done is increased by 10%. I get the 20% critical damage done if I do critical hit. And then I get 35% and 20, or I get a 20% and 20% in my light and heavy attacks. So my light and heavy attacks are going to do 40% increased damage, with an extra 10% being 50%. That's a 50% increase in that damage. And then if I crit, it goes up to 70%, depending on what class I'm playing. So yeah, lots of things you can do. Now I'm going to show you guys the DK tank setup real quick. Of how I like to set up my DK. So I will start here with the 27, guys, and right afterwards I'll take this up to 23, start taking this up to 23. The reason I'll do this is so I do get that better benefit from Green Dragon's Blood. I'll still have the 23 here and the 4, and then that's it. As I progress, though, I will take this up to 43, this up to 56, and then I will focus on this up to 43. And then once I have that, then I'll focus this up to 23. Now, why will I only take this up to 23? Well, that's because I'm a DK. I will be using things like possibly Engulfing Flames, so I might want to increase my damage over time. But I don't want to change this, because this is fine. This is going to be fine for me. So I can build out my damage over time ability, and then still have room to put 30, or put this up to, let's see, 25, and this up to 23. And that way I get 15% increase in my light and heavy attacks. I get a 10% increase in light and heavy attacks. A 25% increase in light and heavy, or 35% increase in light and heavy attacks because of these two bonuses and stuff. And then I get a 20 or like a 60% critical damage. But I also increase my damage over time with having this at 43 and this at 10. So my fire damage abilities will do more damage over time. And I'll focus on physical weapon. Now the other thing I can do is I can take this down to 16 and take this up to 9 if I'm using a staff on the back bar. Just to give me some extra damage on my light and heavy attacks. This will still give me the 10, but this puts me right at a jump point, and you can see I can still benefit. And that's if I'm using a like I said, a fire staff on the back bar kind of thing. And there's a lot more I can do with this than that. I'm just showing you guys some basic stuff. So I'm gonna set the I'm gonna go and do the stamina DPS now, and once we finish that, then we'll close out the video because I will be done with the CP then. So let's go ahead and set this up for a stamina DPS. And like I mentioned, you know, with the magic DPS, you want kind of this, because this is going to start you at 54 points, and from here, the place you want to focus on the most is this. You want to take this up to 43, and then after that, you can go this up to 56 as you're progressing. Now, this is, remember, this is as you're progressing, guys. Just fill these out these way. That way, you're going to get the greater benefit. Once you get this done, then focus onto this, so you can increase your poison dot damage stuff. And then eventually you want to take this up to 56 as well. Now, the reason you want this at 56 and this at 56 and this at 43 is you can see we're at the breaking points of all these. Now, from here, you can fill these in with 10% increases. You can take this up to 56, so you get the 12%, that kind of thing. You still have 48 points. You can take this up to 22, and this will leave you 30 points you can put into here if you want, or you can take a few points out of here, and you can put it into here. It's really up to you on how you want to do it. You don't even have to put the 2 points in here. You can take those 2 points and put them into here if you want. So this way you get that greater thing for DPS. Now, personally, again, guys, I don't like to do this. I like to use breaking points, because breaking points seem to give me the better results in the long run. And I want to take this down to 4 and take this up to 51, and there we go. And this is how I like to set my stamina DPS up, because I get a 43, I get 10% increased physical, poison, disease. I get 51, or 19% increase to my damage done with damage over time. Otherwise, if I had 56 in here, I'd be at 20%. So 56, 1% difference, not much. Then I put 51 in here to give me an increase in my direct damage with light and heavy attacks by 19%, and 35 in here, increasing my light and heavy attacks by 20%. This is just what I like to do. Another thing I like to do is this, just so I can get some extra penetration on my characters, depending if I need it. Otherwise, I will leave them like this. And that's it. So let's go ahead and see what this does to my characters. So we're going to go ahead and, before we allocate these, we're going to go ahead and take a look at my CP, or my stamina. It's at 33. We're going to look at my weapon damage and stuff. You guys can see that's all done. We're going to take a look at a few of the skills and their damage. This does 2,066 with 8,620. This does 12,000, or sorry, 9,700. And this does like 2,200. But we're going to go ahead and look on the back bar at poison injection too. This does 3,949 with 7,610. Now, you don't have to remember those numbers, but just try to remember the first number, like 7,000, 3,000, almost 4, 2,000, 8,000, 9. Just remember those. Now, we're going to go ahead and confirm this. And our CP has been placed. Now we're going to go take a look. I don't have food going, so I went to 33 because my food just wore out. So we're going to go ahead and pop food. Oops, wrong food. Pop food. So here we are with food. Am I using the right food? No, I'm not. So here we are with the right food. 18,000 health with a 39,000 stamina. 1,200 stamina recovery. 3,682 weapon damage. 3,264 weapon damage on the back bar. These did go up, guys. But I do have a potion going. So, but these don't go up without a potion. So I'm going to let that wear off, and the recovery is going to go down too as well. So the recovery stayed the same, but my stamina pool went way up. My damage didn't change, and as you can see, I still have the food. Now let's go take a look at the skills. So these skills went up by just a little bit in damage. Now, I didn't show that one, but you guys remember this one. So these went up by a little bit in damage, and that's what the CP system can do, is it does benefit your character to build into certain things and to give your character certain benefits. And the CP system gives you a lot of options. Now, this is how I keep my base characters set up. You can do a lot more things. If you want to build into having greater penetration, you can, you know, because look at this. If I change this, for example, you won't notice this difference unless you're doing light and heavy attacks. Now, when I put into here, would I notice a difference? Yeah, I'm going to see a difference in my damage when I'm fighting something. What if I do this, and I take this down to 16, and I take this up to 56, and this up to 55, 56. What happens if I do this? Now I just increase my damage overall. Because I took this up 1%, and this up 1%, and this down to 10%. Now I can take completely out of here, guys, and I can take a little bit out of here as well. And I can have 32 points. I can raise these up. And I can take the last 12 points and put it into here, along with one more point. So that way I get this set up. And this will give me greater DPS. There's so many options that you can set up with. It's really up to you as a player to decide what's best. I like a well-rounded character, so that's why I go with the setup I had before. But that's the CP system, guys. Basically, in a nutshell, let me go ahead and cancel this. So there we go. And that's the CP system in a nutshell. It's not hard to figure out. It's just really difficult for people to know where to place their points as they're progressing along. And that's what this video just showed you, is where to place those points as you progress with the different build types. And that's why I compiled it into one video instead of making 3 different videos. Because I'd actually have to make a different video for each like build type. Like, oh, here's Magicka DPS, or here's Magicka DPS, here's Stamina DPS, here's Tank, here's Healer. I'd have to make 4 different builds, I mean, to show you guys the actual layouts. And I could just do it in one and make it easier. So that's why I did this build the way, or this video the way I did. And that's the CP allocation or distribution of your character on how you should. Well, you don't have to follow that exact way. You have your options, and like I said, choose what's best for you. But that's it. So I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, you guys can hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, you can hit that subscribe button. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy might see you in game. Bye.